Mally Coats.
The Mally Coats thing.
Yeah.
How was that experience with them?
It was good. She's great. We did like the pre maternity pics and then the baby pics.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's
so
cool.
It was great. Pictures came out awesome. My daughter's like a wannabe model. I think she like there was equal in that picture. Oh yeah, she just like, oh, can you get me here? She was almost directing a little bit. But yeah, it was good.
That's cool.
Came out really good.
Yeah. So how'd you find them? How do you know about them?
I have no clue. My wife.
Okay.
So yeah, there's a secret.
She's like, show up.
Oh, there's a secret wives club that just like they all communicate like
they all somehow know.
They all know. Exactly.
I get it.
Yeah.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
So give me a high level look of like all the stuff that you're up to these days. Cause I try to know enough about people, but I really want it to be like a fly in the wall kind of conversation where we're actually learning things together, you know?
Sure. So today, for the most part, I'm a venture capital guy. So I like to take, small or sometimes big bets on, things that interest me and excite me. I think there's two veins that falls into. And then the third is just a lot of silly stuff that kind of I like to do for fun. Yeah. So one is really healthcare. I'm very passionate about healthcare. And then the second is real estate development. I think I know I'm a pretty creative guy, and I just love that creative process of having an idea, conceptualizing it, and then seeing it tangibly exist, right? So those are the two things. So we've got this really cool condo conversion project downtown called The Vine that we're rocking and rolling on. We closed in October. I think we bought that building for less than $6 million, low fives, and we've done $12 million in sales so far off of a really pretty website and some renderings, and there's a lot of excitement.
Some really cool video content with that to kind of conceptualize
it. Yeah, and the nice thing is, like, I'm so happy. We've spent exactly $0 on advertising. And even the realtor, I've said, like, listen, let's not waste your money. Let's just see what we can do, mainly with social. And, we spend a lot of money on renderings and content, that kind of thing. That's an investment, more of an asset class, but not really, a paid piece. And I'm happy with the amount of attention it's got.
Yeah.
Because, like, it's not like, oh, let's just take some stock photos and throw a couch here. Like, we had our creatives take and, like, remaster and remodel the actual couch that's going to be in there. So, like, we're really excited. Like, hey, this is what the rendering look like, and I'm gonna. I see the video content already, like the side by side of like rendering versus the finished product, which is gonna be really cool. So I'm very excited about it.
Well, most of the time you get a rendering or something, and it's just sort of like a stock couch, stock this.
Well, it's much cheaper to do it that way, right? I mean, as opposed to like having someone like because when you're ever doing, and I don't know how to do this. I mean, I barely know how to work a phone, but my understanding is like, hey, you can pick out colors, themes, whatever, and then they have like a modern furniture, traditional furniture, and you can just kind of drag and drop so it looks it through, as opposed to like, hey, this is a Baker, which is a very expensive brand in North Carolina. This is a Baker sofa for $18,000. This is the dimensions. That's a color. Here's a swath. Here's a texture. Recreate that.
That's really
and then
cool.
placed in there. So yeah, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah. And then you got what else? Lex Exotics is going on.
Yeah, Lex Exotic. That's probably in the third category of just fun stuff. I probably like every young boy, right? You like cars, and well, at least I did. I really loved cars, and always dreamed of owning one. Now I'm fortunate to own a couple, and I've had this at my house in Keene. We were talking before. I had this really cool bar and an office, and it's odd now, but it was really cool for a little bit. I had these massive windows, like probably twice the size of the windows in your studio here, looking into the garage. And I had racks. So I had 2 cars on this rack, 2 cars on this rack, and then the daily drivers were in the center. I've subsequently ran out of space. Yeah. My wife informed me that either, basically I'm parking outside, not her. Yeah. So then that kind of led in. I own a 20,000 square foot warehouse, and then we built this really cool, basically a man cave. But I really, I'm passionate about kind of sharing that stuff, right? So we've been doing, it doesn't make any money, but it's fun. And we do like these, monthly car show events that are free. And I invite a lot of buddies. I got a lot of cars I'm pretty relaxed about. I've got friends that are equally like really the whole Lexington car community. So you'll see at any given show, we probably got $5-6 million worth of cars, and you'll see like 5-year-olds and 10-year-olds just kind of going in and getting in. Like they're not behind ropes and like, oh no, here. So really kind of the whole idea is to share these things because I think they're art. I'm a big art guy. I think some of these automobiles are like art.
Excuse me.
No worries. And hopefully we excite, the next generation to want to work hard and be passionate and appreciate them.
Yeah. Where's your interest in healthcare come from? You mentioned.
So I've had 3 real companies, I would say, in healthcare, and then a ton of different supplement stuff and, direct to consumer. I've had 5 skincare companies. I should have stopped at 2 because they don't work. They're hard to do. It's a very competitive market, beauty and skincare.
Ask the Kardashians of the world that are now like coming crashing down.
Yeah, no, it's it's tough. I mean, her Skims, the consumer goods brand, like there, but it's really a tough market. They worked for a little bit, right? Because they've got such a voice, and you can just like kind of go through and sell. But best product doesn't always win in that. It's really how much you're going to kind of spend and capture. But so those aside, 3 real companies. One was a animal health company where we focused on regenerative medicine. So stem cell therapy, which was really my first kind of entry into it. I'm a sales guy, I think, by trade. My formal, education and, experience before I went out on my own was, equities. I was an institutional equity trader. So I traded stocks and bonds and those types of things. So it was really understanding like, hey, there's a natural way to do it, as opposed to like everyone's got the 10-year-old lab that are just notorious for osteoarthritis and degenerative joint disease, right? So you see them so happy, tails wagging, but they can't get up the steps or they can't jump in the truck with you, go on the ride. And the conventional standard of care then, and still to lesser degree, is a non-steroidal. So basically take an Advil, right, every day. Well, we know, like your doctor tells you, don't do that every day, right? What happens is your liver. So it's those that kind of have other kind of side effects. So as opposed to having a drug approach, is there a natural component? So that was my first entry into understanding healthcare and like, understanding a little bit of science, and understand about stromal vascular fraction, which is this adipose derived, like fat derived cells that we're getting, and bioactive peptides and macrophages. And so I
don't know any of these words.
Yeah. I'm not a doctor, just play one on TV, but I'd invested so much money that in order to protect that investment, I had to become the CEO of that business. So like there wasn't anyone for me to ask. So I was like, hey, you're either going to know this or learn it. And if you're going to talk to researchers and physicians or veterinarians in that case, you need to, become a subject matter expert. So that was my first entry. Then the second was in a pharmacy business called TaylorMade. And at this point, this was probably 2017, 18, somewhere in that range, 16, 17. And I was living the life of a true, venture capital guy with, no breakfast, 10 o'clock dinners, 2 bottles of wine and bourbon, no gym. So I was weighing in at probably like 315, and not like a good 315, if there is a good 315. And I we went to this anti-aging conference in Florida, and I'm seeing all these doctors that we're going to sell to. And, they're in their 60s and 70s and just look amazing. Not like plastic fake amazing, but just like in shape. And
they
like,
took
wow.
care of themselves.
Yeah, like, wow. And then I'm like, well, maybe there's something to this. Because we're all buying, it was a cash pay business. So looking at like hormone replacement, all these different things. So that was really proof like, wow, this isn't just like some voodoo science. It actually works. And even now it becomes more and more mainstream. But secondly, like, hey, if I'm going to be the owner of this company, it's like me selling you a fucking hair loss product, bro, like, or a hair growth product. Like, fucking probably wouldn't believe me if I'm selling you, right? Because it's not working. So I needed to kind of walk in and like live the part. So that was the driving factor, really, just to be from the business piece, like, hey, let me try it. And then in 60 days, I'm a bit obsessive. In 60 days, I lost 55 pounds, which I don't recommend, but I'm kind of extreme. But that was 5-6 years ago, right? And now I'm still probably in the best shape I've been. I just got back from vacation with the kids for a week, so probably 4 or 5 pounds over now. But I was so excited, like, wow, this is amazing, right? Like, look at me, I'm just like so proud, and you have this feeling. And then probably a month in after that, that excitement turned to anger, because like I was a guy that had some resources, didn't really, and still don't believe in traditional doctors. I just think, and it's not their fault, just the way medicine is practiced in this insurance-based model. It's a complete, numbers game to kind of get you through, and you're just treating, it's population-based medicine, not personalized medicine. So I never went to the doctor. I felt healthy, even though I was really sick, tons of inflammation and stuff, being overweight. But I was like so angry, like, well, okay, I've got resources and now I'm okay. But why isn't this the way medicine is practiced, right? Why isn't this for everybody? Yeah. You mentioned the Kardashians. Well, we had people like the Kardashians. Let's say that, because I don't want to. But we had every celebrity, any A-list person. They were getting our products from Nicholasville, Kentucky, at this pharmacy, and we grew that business, Inc. 500, and pretty successful deal. And that kind of started this mission of like, how can I have an impact? I'm not a doctor, but I'm living it myself, and like, hey, we're all humans, and we all have this, jointly, our country, while spending some of the most per GDP and per capita of any nation around the world, we're the sickest, which is pretty fucked up, right? Yeah. So that's kind of started that passion in healthcare. I exited that pharmacy. Lots of good stories there. Some ups and downs, and some federal raids and fines and stuff with that business.
Those sound fun.
It was fun. I mean, listen, just
federal raids.
Yeah.
Should I ask?
I mean, you should read the book if you haven't read the book. But yeah, it's we went from, I turned down about 600. I can't remember the number. I try to block it out. I turned down the equivalent, like $600 or $700 million for the company, because I was making a lot, and I wasn't going to live any differently. It was a big lick, but I figured, like, hey, the way we were scaling, there's 800 billionaires in this country. So I thought, hey, like, that'd be pretty cool to have $1 billion exit. So I figured if they were going to pay me this much this year, next year, that I could probably get that billion. A week later, I was at the gym, and we were part of a raid and all kinds of stuff at the pharmacy, and ended up having to pay a couple $1 million in fines. And I sold the company still for around $6 million instead of
it's a little
600.
Different.
It's different. I remember, like, my attorneys were like, "Oh, Jeremy, you got to be happy with that, right?" I'm like, you would be like, you would think like $6 million is not it's
missing some zeros.
It's not an immaterial amount of money, but it's not 600. But we did the right thing. We sold that company to some friends out of Louisville. They've got a small little fundless fund called Weller Equity, and this happened right during COVID, and we saved 100 jobs. They're doing, I think, a $10 million expansion right now. So. It's not always about the money. I know, like, that's kind of cliche, but like there's more to it. And you see someone going through, and I believe they're still carrying that torch forward about having, better medicine, better healthcare, healthier patients. Yeah. So that's the second one. And then the third one, I'm a passive investor. We started this business during COVID, which is awesome time. If you want to try to start a company, start during a global pandemic. It's a fucking blast. It really is. new challenges. But that company is called True Diagnostic. That's the one on Corporate Drive, and this one will change healthcare. I'm very excited about being a small part and small investor and help in the early days. We've just partnered up with a local group, not all public yet, but yeah, I'm most excited about that one. The concept of this is, right now, the true business is your biological age, so I can tell you through a drop of blood, like, how old you are cellularly, which is, there's novelty to it. It pays to our old customer base, which are these physicians and healthy patients. So, we've got the same group of celebrities that we used to sell to, we sell to now on this test piece. but we're looking at so much. So, genetics, if you look like 23andMe or Ancestry, that's why you have hair, I don't have hair. Like there's these things that are just predestined in you with the genome. So if you remember the Human Genome Project, like everyone's like, wow, it's going to change the world. It hasn't really, because it's just like a footprint or a blueprint of like, hey, this is what makes you up. But what do you do with that, right? You only get tested from 23andMe one time, like to find out you're 1/8 fucking, Saskatchewan or Scandinavia. Okay, cool. That's great. Or I found a distant cousin or whatever.
What do you do with that information?
What do you fucking do with that information? Yeah. There's nothing, right? That's why their biggest days, and we've got a lot of data on them. We work with them. But their biggest sales days are Christmas, Mother's Day, and Father's Day. So it's a gifting thing, right? It's cool, but doesn't have a lot of utility. That's genetics. True looks at epigenetics. So your epigenome is like one layer removed from your genome, and 70% of that is modifiable. So it's modifiable through diet, exercise, nutrition, medical intervention, supplementation, etc. So there's a lot of things you could do to improve health, whatever. But we're looking at so many. This is called DNA methylation. I know you're like, what the fuck? I was talking about cars, but we look at these markers that are on and off. And we can really tell a lot. So the best elevator pitch to kind of go through. Have you heard of Theranos and Elizabeth Holmes?
Yeah.
Okay, she's in jail. Yeah. Now, right. Her concept was this nanotainer, the small drop of blood, to give all these different tests. Right. It was a fraud because she was talking about regular convention where you go and give blood. That's just flow cytometry and just regular conventional type. You need a bit of volume to do that. There was no way, it just doesn't work. There's no way you can stretch out that volume or dilute it. You lose it.
Nodding like,
Yep.
Yes, I know.
We're basically the non-fraud version of Elizabeth Holmes, right? With this one drop, because we're not looking at the conventional methods. We're looking at this DNA methylation. So these markers that are on, so we can, and this is like the future state, we'll be able to look at, your A1C levels with that same drop. So we'll be able to get a much broader base. So I'm super excited about that. We've got the deal we've just done has brought on real management. I'm an innovator, creator. I can build something from, if you ever, Peter Thiel's got a book, 0 to 1. I'm a great 0 to 1 guy. After we get the business to stabilization, and we're probably doing $15 million a year with True, I get out of the way because I'll just get bored and like, it's all working right. Well, let's fuck it up and like. So we need to bring in adults and have them take it over. So that's what we've done, and really really excited. So
how far do you think we are from what you're talking about becoming somewhat of a primary way that medicine actually gets done, and healthcare gets taken care of? Because you're battling a lot of big names, a lot of money, a lot of tradition, and this is how we've always done it.
Yeah, that's I don't know. Far. Yeah, we're not close. This tech is good because it doesn't go against the grain. We're actually going to be a cheaper alternative, so it's actually better for insurance companies, whatever. So I think that's our next play, which the group that we just did this deal with has a lot of experience in that world. Right now we're cash pay, but it's a better alternative because it costs less money. That's all. You've got these it's called a 3P system in U.S. healthcare: the payer, the provider, and the patient. It should be the relationship that's most important should be the provider, doctor, patient, you. You don't matter. The relationship is the provider and the payer. Payer is the insurance company, right? So the doctor's behavior, that's why it's not their fault. And that's why you see so many doctors leaving traditional, insurance-based practice to go to private healthcare, is because that's not what they signed up for. They didn't sign up.
They signed up for medicine.
They wanted to help people. Every fucking doctor, I've not met one that said, hey, I want to sign. They have an innate, they want to help. And so many of them are just frustrated that they're handcuffed in the ability to actually help, because I can't spend more than 6 minutes with you. I can't, even though I probably know what you're doing. How many times how many times have you had like a doctor, if you've ever had surgery, say, we have to do an x-ray The x-ray isn't going to show fucking anything, and we know it, but we have to do the x-ray to rule out that we can't see anything to get the MRI. Why can't we just do the MRI? Well, because the insurance won't let you do it. Everyone's either had that happen or no. There's those basic stupid fucking hoops that's dictating, and it takes the level of care. So I'm hopeful in the fact that, just like, there's consumer education with the internet, with, data, podcasts, there's more and more content where people can challenge the status quo, especially young people, right? My mom, so it's like, well, the doctor said that I took the pills, so that's good. Like, what fucking pill, Mom? Like, they just have this blind trust as opposed to like, well, what is it? What kind of data is on it? Are there contraindications? They don't ask. Like, our parents are like, well, it's doctor, right? That's what they said. Fucking the doctor isn't making the decision. It's the insurance company, and it's a whole other big piece. And again, it's not like ill intent. It's just like it's a big problem. So how do you do it? So I have no idea if it's ever.
It's not malintent, but at the same time, it's going along with it. Like, do you think medical providers could all just like one day stand up together and be like, no, we're not doing this shit? No. I mean, you don't think they could stand as the people doing the providing? They couldn't stand up against insurance.
It's a big machine. And it's what drives the machines. And I don't think so, but I think what can happen is there's more consumer advocacy. Patients becoming more patients are becoming more educated, and you shouldn't also rely on I think insurance is crucial, right? Like, you can't plan for one of us leave the studio, God forbid, and have a car accident, right? Like, that trauma care, like that is what insurance is for. Like, that catastrophic, like, fuck, your leg's wrong. Like, that is what the purpose of it. I think what you'll see is a world where patients and individuals, like, hey, insurance is always going to be there. And that's a play that should be. You shouldn't be looking at your health insurance to make you healthy, right? It's also a lot of the decisions that you're making, right? I mean, you can bitch at the healthcare system and insurance companies all you want. If you're eating fucking 3 Big Macs and fucking Cokes all day, right? Like, fuck. Like, what do you want them to do? What do you want them to do, right? So, it's easy to say fucking.
It's a lot of accountability.
It's 100% accountability. Yeah. So it's easy to say, oh, insurance is fucking bad, but like, fuck, what do you want me to do? Like, okay, I'm sorry, you're morbidly obese, you're going through and you're eating shit, and now I'm supposed to like. So on that side, and that's a big population, right? You talk to ER docs, like, people are having mental health things and they're on drugs. Like, those are vicious cycles that it's a nearly impossible problem to solve. So I think I don't think insurance ever changes. I think it can get better and whatever, but same thing like Social Security. Are you fucking banking on Social Security for your retirement?
No.
Okay, so you shouldn't bank on insurance. But hey, if you get Social Security, fucking great. Maybe it pays for that's good to have.
But at least insurance you can access today.
Yeah, but don't rely on it. Yeah. But I think now it's going to be like, let's make better decisions. Let's look at what we're doing. Let's wear Oura rings to monitor our sleep. Like, that is where we take our health care, just like we take our own financial security in our hands. That's where it is. So it's a patient's responsibility to do that. Yeah. And you see that more and more, way more today than 10 years ago.
But that's such a big. It feels like an even bigger conversation than just accountability, because what jumpstarts accountability of a population that doesn't have that inherently? You grow up in a house where maybe Big Macs are what you ate. Well, and that's just what, like, you see life through a certain lens, through the experiences that you have. And I know that you could be exposed through social media and other things of accountability, but
and environment is a big thing, right? I mean, forget that. Look at, I mean, there's a huge population of socioeconomic components where, like, there's food deserts, like, where you can't get fresh food. Like, you and I could probably go to health foods. Like, there's people that either the budget, it's cheap, right? If you are, economically, so it's a bad system. Like, and that's a problem. Like, you to your point, you see that generational component. Like, well, yeah, we had Kool-Aid on the weekends, or we had these things. Well, packs of Kool-Aid are fucking a lot cheaper than a case of Prime, right? That have 25 calories or 27 calories. Like, that's another kind of vicious cycle that you gotta kind of break. I think that's less education and more economic, right? that's
shouldn't somebody take that on the chin a little bit though? So you have like Michelle Obama had the whole thing with the food pyramid, like where they turned it upside down, or they eliminated it and kind of morphed that, and they passed laws basically saying like, no, nutritious foods have to be given to schools. And then the next administration comes in and undoes all of that because they favored the economic component of that and the cost savings, which I can understand both sides.
Yeah.
But, in this kind of argument where we talk about like, not argument, but you know what I mean? Like you're putting pressure on healthcare and all these other kind of systems because, the food at the schools are shitty and the kids, they learn everything at school. Their experience, their environment, like what you're saying, is teaching them. So it's like when they go to school and they have school pizza and it's really terrible for you, or it's like Taco Bell is coming in and selling food to them or whatever. Like they're learning that, oh, this is at school, this is nutritious, this is oftentimes the only meal that kids even have access to. 1 in 5 kids in Kentucky go hungry.
Yep.
I mean, so like, is there a point where even at that kind of level that we as taxpayers and whatever should like take it and be like, you know what, it's okay. I'm not in a situation where this is a problem, but I think we need to actually pay for this kind of thing in a public school system or the neighborhood like food pantries and stuff. And even if we lose money off of it, it's not a money making endeavor.
From a social responsibility.
I know that was a long way to get there.
Yeah, from a social responsibility. Yeah, look, and I think the intent there, the money is just not there, right? I think that's the bottom line. It's all derived around education, and I think the idea of I do a lot of stuff in the Middle East. I'm taking my son there like for his 10-year trip back to Dubai, right after school, and Dubai. I'm not sure if you've ever been. It's remarkable. I've had the pleasure of sitting down with His Highness Sheikh Mohammed over tea a couple times. Complete visionary, and it's a utopia. It's a beautiful modern city. You don't see a cop, but they're around. It's so safe. You could it's unbelievable. You have free healthcare, and everything is there. They have a massive surplus of money. And there's like 200 and something, 300,000. There's hundreds of thousands of Emiratis, locals, and a big pool of money. In this country, if we had those same economics, well, fuck the world. Like there would be no homelessness, there would be no starvation, there would be none of these things. Unfortunately, that's just not the world that we live in. And I think just like healthcare and insurance companies, I think what you're talking about is even deeper, and it's this learned behavior. I think that we have to, right? Like we're going to go through an election, right? Who do we have as candidates? I mean, everyone's got opinions of them, but it's not their fucking problem. It's like they are not going to solve it for you. I'm Republican. I've still done well in a Democratic president, right? I mean, they can't be your savior and your salvation, even though that's what they talk about and pin each other against it. So I think it just strives into more of this education and kind of going through and consuming. And I would not, take it lightly, the amount of stuff that you do, like this content, kind of putting out there that it will fall. If you start going down that rabbit hole, right, you're looking at, video content, you'll start getting served more video content, and it's there. But having the government help, they have the best intention, but it's not the ability. Like, who wants to be president? The person that does, the most qualified person who doesn't want the job, right? No one wants to be that. And you look at history when they've tried, it never goes well, right? So remember, you mentioned Obama, how much the Obama phone, remember that? Like, scandal, everyone's getting flip phones. Like, that's bullshit, whatever. I don't like Obama. I didn't vote for Obama. But it wasn't his fault. This whole thing, like, is a great example. Like, flip phones and everyone's getting BlackBerries, all that stuff. That's not what the original legislation was made for.
Right.
Do you know what it's for?
I don't know where I don't know. I mean, what I understand was that Obama phones were like, in the event that somebody needs to be able to call 911 or some other kind of emergency kind of moments.
That's my point. That's why I'm point. But
I don't know if that was really it.
But Obama didn't start that legislation. Okay. So this is an example of like, go all the way back when that legislation was done. It predated cell phones, and it was for people that needed social help, that could not afford a landline in their phone. So that's what it was derived for. Exactly what you said. In the event of emergency, fire, whatever, it's a human right as an American citizen that we want to go through. Ask anybody on either side of the aisle, should we fund that? Fucking 100%, right? We should have the ability to have a phone, someone, that if your grandmother can't afford it, whatever.
Off the side of the bed.
That you can call. Yeah. That is where it goes. The problem with politics is it starts there and then fucking just goes to BlackBerries, right? And so it's on both sides.
How the hell do we keep doing that? How do we keep going
from
let's look moment to something that's
it drives behavior. So, I mean, we're going to fucking go into like a whole tie right now, but
that's fine.
It drives behavior because now what you talked about, like what you see, right? Yeah. So let's talk about like food stamps. And let's talk about remember like government cheese. That was the thing, right? You'd get government cheese. Yeah. You the 1st and 15th, you go and get this, basic necessities, whatever. And then that's adapted. So that's, again, should we if someone can't have food living in this country, should we not give them food? Everyone will go through and say, yes, we should do that. That's the little crack in the system that now, how can we on both sides of the aisle fucking just exploit that? And it gets worse and worse and worse. And that's where we're in the financial state that we are in this country. In that, all right, well, now it's not government cheese. It's EBT cards and debit cards, all these different pieces. And then now, how do you get more money on those cards? Do you know?
No.
You have more fucking kids.
Oh.
Right? So now you're in a component where you've got all right, well, hey, I can get this. I can get this subsidy. I'm a single mom.
And now welfare on top of that is going up.
No, exactly. Yeah. And then now go to the system like, all right, well, I'm getting these amount of benefits. I'm getting these amount of benefits, and I got this much for these 4 kids, right? All right, great. I've got that. Why would I get a job? Because if I got a job, then that would take away my benefits. So now it's a world of like, don't get a job because it would you would make less money than on the budget. That is seen in environmental behavior, right? So when you see like now the 4 kids, like, hey, what am I eating? What am I consuming? All those pieces. That's when you start going through like, all right, well, no, I shouldn't. Like, why would you don't want to work. You want to get benefits and do something like, so that's like the vicious cycle from a very macro piece of how something common sense politically makes started. So like, that's why I think on your point, is it up to us? Is it like, fuck no. Cause like you're going to rely on politicians who don't have a clue what they're fucking doing to take it responsible. It's about us taking responsibility and educating and kind of going through. And I think, look, how many hospitals were built by, rich guys and girls and philanthropy versus a lot more than fucking government has, right? A lot more. That's our responsibility. It's that charitable work. It's kind of going back, helping with the community. Let's go to food pantries and all those things. Help in your community. You do it as individuals.
Yeah.
Forget about the government. If the government actually fucking surprises and does something, great. Bonus. But you can't rely on them. Just like you can't rely on insurance companies to take care of your health.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, I feel like government can do a ton of great things. But we see it through, I was talking about the COVID restrictions yesterday. We look at that evolution of COVID, for example. We go from total shutdown to everything and all the things that happened to now, 2 weeks ago or so, the CDC comes out and they say,
this is just to be clear. So this is a disease that's so deadly that you have to get tested to make sure you have it. And it's so scary that you have to be mandated to take it. That COVID, right?
Right.
Okay.
To now where the CDC says, okay, if you get a fever, which is indicative, and you're positive for COVID, you need to chill out. But 24 hours after, not having a fever, go do whatever, which is super loose and kind of just like a normal, almost like flu kind of situation, right? Yeah. Which a lot of people at the very beginning were like, it's probably just the flu, not a big deal. You also have the commentary early on of, we don't know what this thing is. It's new. Mm-hmm. So, I could never imagine having to be that person like an Anthony Fauci or somebody. Like, you can have opinions all you want about the people, but they flew under the radar for decades. And now magically they're on CNN and Fox and everything every day. And now you know who they are. You trusted them forever. And then now we go, well, I don't know if I trust them. It's like, well, you know, the narratives got weird. And if we lived in a dictatorship, it would be just real easy for the government to say, no, this is what we're doing. Mm-hmm. Some people felt like that's what happened during COVID. But because the nature of how we operate, everybody gets represented by government. So of course it's the most vanilla thing ever. Mm-hmm. And you know, you start with this like, no, we're going to shut everything down and we're going to do this. And then you start getting people going, okay, well, I'm an essential worker. And then they're like, well, so am I. And so am I. And now that becomes, you know, diluted for whatever the hell that was. Yeah. I mean, one of the companies we work with is a musical instrument manufacturer. Why were they an essential worker? I don't know, but they were.
Yeah.
So that gets diluted. Then the conversation over time, you know, science is always evolving. Mm-hmm. We think we know a lot of hard and fast rules today about space or physics or medicine and whatever. Mm-hmm. And in 100 years, we're going to look back and be like, wow, they didn't know what the hell they were talking about.
Right.
Today, we think that it's hard and fast rules.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Science is always evolving.
100%.
We saw it evolve in real time in front of our faces for 2 years. And it's like at some point you have to trust each other. I mean, we're all like doing work for each other. Mm-hmm. I mean, like I didn't make this. Somebody else had to make this. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So as science was uncovering, again, taking science at face value and saying we trust these people before, I still have no reason not to trust them in this moment. Mm-hmm. As the science was unraveling and they were figuring out like, okay, well, now things are becoming a little more clear. Mm-hmm. The rules continue to evolve. But of course, people start thinking like, well, this is shitty. Like, I don't want to believe any of this. And so now the real extremes start. The people that are hard and fast trying to follow the rules, the people that really want to reject it. And then you got everybody in between. So whereas government, they have to represent all of it.
Yeah.
So of course the message keeps getting more and more and more and more diluted to where it seems like insanity and people go, government sucks. And it's like, well, government's doing what you guys are telling it to do.
Right.
Because of how extreme we decided to be.
Sure.
So I know a lot of times it's easy for people to be like, oh, government just can't do anything. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, it's also accountability, right?
Yep.
Talk about accountability and a Big Mac going in your mouth versus a vegetable. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing of like, well, how conspiracy theorist am I going to allow myself to be on either side to make the government still have to protect me and cover me, you know? And it's like, that's what's covering all the other things. It's like if EBT was supposed to be healthy stuff or food stamps, like a certain category of foods. And then people are like, well, you can't tell me what to eat. And it's like, okay, I guess we'll relax the rules. And now we'll include these things. And it's just like everybody's opinion matters. And it's like, at some point we have to be able, there's got to be some level of, okay, the fringe like bullshit, you guys got to chill out because we have to actually get something done here.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, 100%. And that's why
I don't know what I was just saying. I just ranted for 5 minutes.
No, but I think what you're saying is, you know, the intent is good. That's what I'm saying. Like Obama, don't like Obama. Like, it wasn't the fucking Obama phone. Like, he caught, that's my point, right?
Oh,
So like, but it started with good intent and then it kind of went away. But yeah, it's class warfare. I mean, that's the thing. That's a problem with politics. I mean, you know, years ago, Steve Forbes, you know, was really kind of promoting this flat tax, and I don't know how much you're
still trying to do that here in Kentucky.
Yeah,
right?
And like it's so smart. It's so smart because like what are we going to hear until November? What are we going to hear? Fucking Republicans fucking suck. This is what's going to do. Trump's fucking going to jail. Yeah. Biden's a fucking criminal. He can't fucking talk. He's a puppet. He's a rope. Like you're going to hear all this nonsense, and you're going to
there's no substance.
There's no substance, and you're going to have one group, right? That you're going to say like fucking that's your problem, and that's who to blame, and I'm going to fix it for you. And then the other group's the same thing. The idea of this flat tax is, hey, we're going to tax everyone this much, right? It's going to be 20%, right? Whatever it is. Everyone on, like, it's more of a consumption tax, right? So, like, it's VAT in EU. So if you are under a certain socioeconomic value, you don't pay any tax, right? So it's like, it's not like you're going to tax poor or whatever. So that's the idea. But the intent is to make it an even playing field. So like now this is the balanced budget, everyone's there. So that takes out the biggest argument of like the economy. It takes it out. Like, well, fuck you, man. This guy can balance the budget. You can't. That's the guy. Republican, Democrat, no matter. So that is like the idea. The idea of it. But there's a lot of it's a big system, and I think there's a lot of value in business, and politics is a big business, lobbying is a big business. Like those things that it's a good idea, but I don't know that it ever happens.
Well, when you get into flat tax, I mean, I guess the pushback from a more left-leaning person would be 20% of somebody that makes 60 grand is X.
They would be excluded.
So what is the floor for having to pay?
Well, there's different models, right? I mean, I haven't looked at it in a long time, but I believe it's under like $80,000 or something.
Okay.
But and it's not about income; it's about consumption,
right?
Which is really cool. So like, hey, if you're just excluded, you buy stuff where you get a credit back, and if you bought this coffee, there's tax, you would go through and you get their money back and whatever. But what it does is, hey, you want to go buy a $2 million boat? Okay, you're going to pay. Whatever. Right. So you're going to buy the big house, like you're going to pay on consumption. What it also does is actually taxes illicit money, right? So the drug dealer that's buying the, Rolls Royce in Miami or
he's still going to Royce.
Yeah. So he's
Rolls to buy it.
Yeah. Because he's buying. And so, okay, if you want to pay $400,000 for the car, what's $450,000 and $50,000 in tax? So it now actually brings into the taxation some of this money that's not above board. So it's not different. But again, no one gets down to that point because they won't say, oh, well, you're taxing everybody and it's unfair, you're raising my taxes. That's not the actual case. It's a way to go through, hey, you want to go and buy other stuff, go buy it, right? Everyone bitches at like big corporations and whatever, like and I won't get political, but there was like a meme going around, it's obviously resurfing right now, of I think it's Chappelle did it, right? Chappelle did a skit about it, and it flashed back to a Hillary and Trump debate. And she's like, this guy pays no taxes. He's like, yeah, don't, because I follow the tax code. If you want me to pay more taxes, change the tax code.
Rules.
But you won't, because all of your donors use the same fucking tax I do. Mic drop. It's fucking true. It's true. So again, that's the whole point. Like, okay, change the tax code. If that's what and it hasn't been changed since. So as much as they want to go through and say billionaires and big corporations don't pay tax, whatever, the Democrats have had like control. Change the fucking tax code. Why hasn't it been completely changed?
Had control when?
Well, I mean, in the presidency, but I mean,
well, he doesn't make laws.
But I mean, over the last, that's been an argument, like whether it's in control of the House, the Senate, presidency, the Democrats have had an equal amount of control over time as the Republicans. So I think the idea is that's the major point. But again,
I feel like you're actually tapping around like a tradition that used to exist. I say used to because it got ruined in like last 8 years of trusting each other as politicians and people in the room, valuing the seat that they hold, and understanding like I'm a representative of the Commonwealth of Kentucky.
Right.
That means something.
Yeah.
In thinking the lineage of people that held that seat, they couldn't give a shit less anymore. Now, now it's just go in there and throw your weight around, and it's like, well, we're in power now, we're going to change this. And it never used to be like that. It used to be like, we understand that we're not going to make these gigantic wholesale changes all the time because we understand it'll come back at us.
Yeah.
And plus, we actually respect the people across the aisle. And that respect is just so
it's infuriating. Right now. Politics are probably more brutal than they ever have been. But I think again, I don't have the model for a flat tax, but I think the biggest component, one of the biggest components, always comes down to the economy and how you are in your pocket. That's to your point, these extremists in the main population. And if you eliminated that argument and made it where like, hey, this is the rule that we have to all go through, and you both have to balance the budget, and everyone held that one person accountable, the side of the aisle you were on would matter less, right? Because because now that's out of the debate. So now you're talking about just foreign diplomacy, war, military. You're taking the economy out of it.
So I'm not going to pretend to really know much about flat taxes, to be honest with you. So I need to go inform myself. But based on what I just heard, and you tell me if I misunderstood. So if I'm under, say, 80 grand a year, I don't need to pay anything for consumption, right?
Correct.
So that benefits me, right? That benefits that person not having to pay anything.
It's not.
And
it's not that much different. So the idea is that someone that pays taxes and has taxes withheld that makes $80,000 and they file their taxes, they usually get that refund back anyway. So they're a net neutral. It's not going to change their world.
But I'm thinking the opposite side of that, like a lower income person, 60 grand, not paying anything. Cool, they benefit. But then the opposite side of that is you have all the wealth in the world, which gives you all the flexibility and all the ability to go out and buy things. Well, now aren't you paying more? So wouldn't that person really hate a flat tax? I mean, the biggest argument has always been for the progressive tax that we currently have to add that other 1% for the top 1% to pay more. Mm-hmm. How is this any different from the argument I could guarantee I would hear in the GOP side is that's an attack on the rich? Because they're the ones, they're not being taxed more, but they're being taxed more effectively because they're buying more, right? So how's that different?
Well, not necessarily. Like that's the misconception.
Okay.
Like Bezos. Okay.
And I'm asking because I don't know.
Bezos is making a lot of money. Amazon's making a lot of money, right? Now there's hedges to kind of go through and make sure that you pay as minimal tax as possible. But okay, he's buying a boat. He's buying this. Not really, right? It's paying a lot of money, but how much can you spend? Like that's where that's my point. I think where it kind of gets to the crux is like you've got the small business owner that's kind of going through that's really and they're not the extreme wealthy and like they're buying their house or they choose to buy this boat. They try to go through it. It does even out. The rub is, hey, I've made this much money in a C corp. Like let's say it's in a C corp. So before you take any dollars, I've made this much. That's where they're trying to fight. Get more of that wallet share. Even if you didn't like spend any of it, even if you did nothing with it, right? I think that's the idea where it's ubiquitous as opposed to this flat tax. It's your choice. You chose to buy said $500 million yacht. You chose to buy $500 million. So that's the idea.
And the idea though is Jeff could just sit on the cash, right?
Correct.
Not buy anything.
Well,
and pay no taxes.
Well, on his side, it's
obviously would not
on
happen.
his
That's
side.
a super extreme statement.
Well, but it's still not enough to kind of do any damage. I mean, he just bought a $90 million house in Indian Creek. In Miami, like there's a how much can you spend, right?
Yeah.
From that tax report, it would still be less than probably what he's paying now.
So, do you think again, this is me totally asking because I don't know, in a flat tax situation, would that not promote the idea of sitting on money and just not buying things, and that whenever you know what I mean? Because like right now, you get taxed on having the money at all.
I don't think so. I mean, it's the same game. It's just how you calculate it. Okay. I mean,
that's the disconnect I have right now is trying to make that make sense.
Yeah,
and I just don't understand it.
I was talking to a buddy the other day, right? About my wife's wanting to build a lake house, like really good. So, and she's I just actually mentioned to you, right? So we're gonna meet with the builder later on,
Tennessee,
and another one of my buddies, it's like just the wife's always kind of spending so much money, kind of going through it. You have an option. You can fight with your wife, right? Tell her not to spend, which is going to go back to option one, fight, right? So like get her to budget, or an easier option, go fucking make more money, right? So I think that's your approach. Like, okay, cool. Like that's when I go through and go do that. Yeah. I say that in jest, but like that's it. Like it's your choice. Like go through. There is. Here's a fucking silly stat, and this hasn't been vetted, but it's out there. 40% of all the money that's ever been printed in the history of the United States, 40% of it has been printed in the last 12 months. Okay, there's an infinite supply of money. That's why inflation's going away, whatever. So there's more money to be made. From that perspective, am I going to buy the boat? Fuck, I'll buy the boat because I enjoy the boat. I can go through it. So I think it's a different mindset. From where you're setting. Yeah. And again, I don't think flat tax, all this being said, I think it's all moot because it will never get passed because then it would really render the argument of a Republican Democrat a lot. It would take a lot of that fuel away from these fights that helps win elections.
Yeah. I want to go back to a statement you just made though on it's easier just to make more money. I'm curious what does that look like? If you, I know you have a lot going on, you're doing pretty well that you've hinted to. So say if you were, what's the average or the median income right now, a household?
I don't know.
Last I saw it was somewhere between like 54 and 72,000 or something, something like that. Say you fall even in the 72,000 range. Right now with inflation, that's really not 72. What would be like a first move that you think that you would make with typical kind of expenditures? Maybe you got 1 or 2 kids, maybe you're even just renting and don't even own a home and you wanted to make some more money. Because typically it's like, there's not much flexibility in the finances there,
Fair. So let's give some parameters around that statement. So
is this a fair question, by the way?
It is. It is. But I want to give some context, so I'm not insensitive to the statement, because I understand like it could be like, oh, just make more money, it's easy. But the context, like, well, wouldn't that, if you're Bezos, whatever, you wouldn't do it. That's like, I don't give a fuck. You charge me more money, and that's why I said, hey, you can make money in a Republican economy or a Democratic economy. If you're a business guy, I think you can just go through and hopefully have effort. You get lucky, and you can kind of go through and do it. So that was more of the comment. You can kind of go and just make more money.
And I think, can I preface my thing with one more aspect?
Yes.
To make sure that I put it in there is, I think a lot of people want to make more money, and they feel stuck or in that routineness of like, well, I've had this job for 12 years. Yeah. And the only path to more money is a promotion, which is 4 years away or something. There's some feeling of constriction of like, well, there's not really options here. I'm just here. So anyway.
No, and I think
I wanted to add that part.
That's good. So this is what I talk about all the time is, I firmly believe that small business is the lifeblood of this economy, locally and globally, right? Small business accounts for most of the taxable income, not the Amazons and the Apples and those. So I'm speaking from that small business component. Everyone is not meant to be an entrepreneur, despite what, Damon John and Mark get you to think about on Shark Tank. But I think what they've done is help inspire kind of people or whatever. I think that the next Elon or, Gates or, some of these, brilliant minds are wrapped in this bit of fear that, hey, I've got this job, it's safe and it's stability and whatever. It's very scary going out and doing, being, an entrepreneur, right? I mean, it was very scary when I had, raided and ended up paying $2 million in fines and all this like that. It was very scary. I own the company. It's only me. It's a lonely place. But I try at different podcasts and different meetings to talk about, the importance of just trying and just getting started, right? And now with the gig economy, with, so many things that you could learn. I mean, to start a company, I started Delk Enterprises 20 something years ago. I had to get a lawyer to get me organized, LLC document. I mean, it's all this stuff, right? For probably $99, you can start an LLC, right? Yeah, you can learn so much, right? You don't need to go to Harvard. You don't need there's so much free content out there to learn. So you're making $70,000 a year and pick an industry. What job would you have for that?
I don't know, electrician.
Cool. So you're a journeyman electrician. You've been doing it. You're really good. That's either your passion, right? That's your passion is electricity, or maybe your passion is coffee, whatever it is. We're working, 9 to 5. You got economies, it's our choice. Hey, maybe I want to go and start my own electrical company. Maybe I want to go do this. Maybe I see how my boss is doing it. I want to go and try and do something different. I see another niche kind of going through. So that dabbling is what I'm saying has an opportunity to make more money, either as your own company, as your own boss, or as an employer. In one of our last companies, we paid a sales guy like $1 million a year because he went and I gave him an opportunity. Here's a framework to go through. So maybe you don't always have to go and start your own company, but you can be invaluable. Like, let's learn a skill set. Let's stack this up to kind of go through and do this. Like, you're a great video guy here that's doing this. Like, hey, I see you're doing all this. I think I can make the studio even this much cooler, do this. It's going to be more money, but it's going to be this other piece I do before and after, right? There's ways you can do stuff that you're going to be more valuable.
Sorry, this cough is really annoying.
No worries. But you can be more valuable either as a business owner, entrepreneur, or to your employer and kind of stand out and go and do it. You're not going to just make money because you need to make more money and you say, I want to make more money. You got to put the work in, just like you got to put the Big Mac down to not be more really big. Like, you have to do something to do it. It's not easy, but it's easier than you think, right? And it's scary as fuck. And you are going to get hit in the fucking face. Believe me, I mean, I haven't caught one by Tyson, but I felt like I have. It's going to suck. But if you just keep going, right? I wrote a book, Without a Plan, and it's a memoir of unbound action and failing my way to success. That's truly it. I've learned very little from my big successes because those are, you're easy. I'm a genius. This was so great. The reality is what you learn the most is, wow, that fucking sucked. Yeah. It didn't go anywhere I planned. Go back and triaging that, understanding, kind of building from that. So being open to learn, asking questions, having these conversations, I think that's the piece. I guess
the part that we rarely touch on is just like, it's a personality thing too. You know, take the $72,000 electrician, you know, like a kind of painted, there's a certain lifestyle there too, you know, where people fall into the like, well, putting the kids first, and they got baseball, and like there's a certain speed that moves at, and there's a comfort that comes with that, and a lot of people that is what they want to attain, which there's no judgment in that, is, you know, but at the same time, like moving at a certain speed of life, but then also wanting more money, and then the delta is not doing the work to, like, the speed is going to have to change if you want the more money, or some action's going to have to change, right?
I wouldn't be so quick to say that, you know, the money is the answer, right? Yeah. Because it's not, right? It's a great tool.
But I started with the question of like, how do you make more money?
Yeah.
That's the only reason I'm saying
it. For sure. But I think, you know, it's like in the electric trade, I mean, anything like trades, like that's a dying breed. Like, you know, fewer and fewer people are going to school, and I don't believe that you necessarily should go to college unless you're going to go for a trade. And a trade is, you know, medicine, legal, engineering. Those are still trades, in my opinion. But those are really high-paying jobs you're going through. But actual trades, carpentry, construction, like I'm deathly scared of what happens. Like, you want to like, China's the threat. What happens to our economy when, you know, it's already happening? As a construction guy doing some development, like it's hard to get people just to come through. Like, hey, it's a multi-million-dollar bid that we're trying to give out. I'll get you a quote in a couple of months. Like and that's because they're so behind, because it's a supply and demand. There's few good contractors, skilled, that all you have to do is give a fair price, stick to that price, and show up. That's the fucking economy. You want to like have a hack, go into that. Like start be an electrician and say, hey man, I'm going to wire your house. I'm going to be there on Monday, and the price isn't going to change. You will not be able to fucking keep up. That's not personality. I'm outward. I'm kind of going through. You can be the most introverted person. Your name will fly off the radar. Like, hey, dude,
because
Jeremy,
the value is there.
You've got to talk to this guy. This guy told me it's going to be $5,000. He said it's going to be there on Monday at 8. He was there at 7:45, and it was $5,000 and it was done on time. Fuck, please. Imagine that. Shocker. So like, it doesn't have to be this complex, let's change epigenetics and change the world of healthcare. It doesn't have to always be those big ideas. There's so much value in those positions and anything, and just take pride. That's the other thing too. Like, it's not about the money, but take pride in what you do. And as an employee, like, I can guarantee you, as an employer, that's what stands out. And that's when you want to go through and invest. Like, hey man, I see what you're doing, and I recognize that. What's your dream? Have those conversations and share. That's the other piece too. Like, sometimes we're so scared to say what we want or what these ideas are. You're not going to get anything that you want unless you ask for it. You got to put it out there, right? Whether it's to the wife and I want to go and start my own electrical company just to go down that same narrative, or to your boss, like, hey, I want to be the lead engineer, or hey, I want to run a division, or I want to eventually succession. Like there's so many businesses. I'm trying to buy companies now because there's so many, especially in that sector, that have no succession plan, that the kid doesn't, son or daughter doesn't want to take it over. Most of those businesses are just going to, hang up the shingle. That's a fucking shame. This could be a 20, 30 year, 40-year-old family business, second generation, that is just going to go away when it doesn't need to.
Yeah. Man, I feel like we could talk for like another 3 hours. I'm having a lot of fun with this. I appreciate you like coming in and having such a candid conversation. I think this is a lot of fun.
Nah.
Yeah. And really want to get like to know you better, not just about companies and make it an infomercial,
Yeah.
So, but to that end, as we wrap up, it's like, what else should we know about you? What's going on right now that maybe you want people to know that's most pressing?
No, look, I love Lexington. I'm from Bardstown, Kentucky originally. And
really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where'd you grow up in Bardstown?
Do you know Bardstown?
My wife is from there.
Yeah. So 245, like Lutheran Church Road, where I grew up.
Cool.
Went to Nelson County, went to St. Joe through 8th grade, and then went to county. But yeah, lived in New York, still lifelong friends in New York, and go up there a ton. And came back and live in Nicholasville. So I consider Lexington my home, and I think it's really one of the best cities to live in the country. I mean, it's I get in trouble for saying all these different things. It's largely pretty efficient to live. I know it's fucking tough to buy a house. I don't know if you saw this stat. Income to house price ratio. I don't know if you saw this. A Courier Journal put it out about a month ago. 3 worst cities to live and as a Gen Z, from an income component and a housing component. Number 1, LA, 2, San Diego, 3, Lexington, Kentucky, which is fucked. Fucked. So besides housing, we got great restaurants. Basketball is a little up there now. I don't know. I don't know when you get. I don't know when you get this produced and out. But great sports. I mean, it's a great city. Airport. It's one of the shortest lines to go through airport security. I mean, it's a great place to live, and I love Lexington. I've been very lucky and blessed and fortunate to have some successes that have outpaced the failures, and I really am looking to just invest more in Lexington. I'm looking for more real estate downtown. I love downtown. The
kind of real estate, commercial,
yeah. Okay. But commercial to build. I want downtown can be and will be so vibrant. Already is. It's on the cusp. But I want to build more condos. I want to build apartment houses. I want to really, really transform. I don't think we're ever Nashville, but I think we can be fucking close. So I really want to do a lot of that. And I love this community. I really do. I want to buy those companies that don't have a succession plan. I think, McGee's going out of business. That's fucked, man. That's it's that we lost, right? Like the community lost.
That in the drive-in.
On Newtown. The chicken one, Parquet. Those are institutions, right? We were just down, we have a place in the BVI. And we were down there with friends of mine. And so it was my wife, the Luffmans. I don't know Brian Luffman.
Yeah.
So Brian and Sarah Luffman.
Yeah, I filmed some of his stuff over at Bourbon House.
Okay, cool house. Very cool house.
It's really cool.
So we were down there, my 3 kids, his 3 kids. And what's so cool about that island is the people. And sandy floor. Kenny Chesney's down there all the time. It's, sandy floors and whatever. I'm like, this is why, and we try to invest. And I took 2 duffel bags of laptops down for the local school. It's our responsibility to keep it where it's not ever commercialized, where it's like our kids, we're eating dinner. And I've got a picture. I can show you. Which was this is what it looked like, I'm sure, in the, in the 80s.
Are you afraid in the social media world? This happens in a lot of places where somebody goes and they start blowing up a location being like, nobody knows about this place. Yeah. And then everybody knows about it.
I mean, look at that. How, that's just, that's just pure as it can get. It's just pure as you can get. I mean, just lights and a, tire swing. That's such a, something that I was like, I texted my family, like, that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
So that's what I believe in Lexington. If we can try and preserve as much that while growing and having, because there's so many great companies in great construction, which is like a sleeper. I mean, they're doing so much, finding great jobs. I mean, so many great companies in Lexington. And yeah, I want to be a small part of, helping add value, and, my kids growing up here and eventually grandkids and
that's
that
great,
stuff.
man.
So yeah, I don't know if it answered your question, but that's it. Obviously more real estate and buy some businesses and help keep Lexington great.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, I appreciate what you're bringing, the value that you're adding downtown, and I think it'll be a pretty cool thing.
It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Can't wait to check it out.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again for coming on. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
I'd love to do it again sometime.
Yeah, let me know.
Yeah.
Not too far away. Thanks, man.
Hey, thanks so much for listening to the Lexington Business Show. Go right now, rate and review the podcast. It's how we grow and thrive and how we get more listeners and get to do a lot more cool stuff here on the show. Thank you.